Good morning, folks, and Steve, thank you for that kind introduction. There we go. We've got the webcam going. We've got the sound on. I remembered to unmute myself, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about three phases. We're going to talk about understanding the transmission. We're going to talk about the disinfection procedures that are necessary, and then we'll talk about what to do on the dock. And we start with understanding the transmission, because if you don't understand what you're dealing with, it's going to be tough to come up with procedures that will prevent the transmission. So coronavirus versus COVID-19 versus SARS-CoV-2, what is it? What's in the name? The coronavirus family is a family of enveloped viruses, number of different structures within that family, but they all have those club-shaped spikes that you see in all the pictures, including the big scary one beside the wording here. Additionally, there is a lipid layer, a fatty sheath around all of the viruses, and that'll be important when we start talking about the different types of disinfectants and what the disinfectants do. Within that coronavirus family, there is a wide range of severity to the respiratory infections that they cause. And they all cause some type of respiratory infection there. They can range from mild all the way to fatal. There are a number of coronaviruses that you may know. Many of us will have been in business since 2003, and we experienced the first round of SARS. SARS, S-A-R-S, stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, and this current version is SARS-CoV-2, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, which causes the COVID-19 disease. In 2012, we experienced another coronavirus pandemic. This coronavirus was the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. That one had an extremely high fatality rate, but not nearly as infectious as SARS-CoV-2, and was contained much earlier. The one that we are facing now, SARS-CoV-2, a lot of data is becoming available. It seems to be performing and behaving in ways similar to the other SARS virus. A lot of the transmission factors are the same. The way it transmits, what it does to the body, there are similarities there. So some of the testing, some of the data that we have now to work with is based on the performance and the behavior of other viruses that are similar to SARS-CoV-2. And up to and including the common cold. A number of the varieties of common cold that we experience on an annual basis are actually coronaviruses. So how are we getting these infectious? How do we get these viruses inside? It's respiratory droplets. Particles of water 5 microns or larger that are coming from our respiratory system. So whether that's through the nose or through the mouth, coughing, sneezing, talking, breathing, these are what's creating the respiratory droplets. Once those droplets with the virus is in the air, it's airborne, it's landing on various surfaces, we have the ability then to either breathe it in if it's airborne, or touch those surfaces and then touch the face, touch any of the mucous membranes, and the virus can get transmitted that way. I'm sure most of you going through the new conference calls and video conferencing had no idea how often we touch our faces on a daily basis. The touching surfaces, and then I'm making a very funny joke and touching my face while I'm doing it, and I forgot to start sharing the video. Viral load matters. The amount of virus that you get into your body definitely impacts how quickly the body can start to fight, and how much of an impact that viral infection is going to have. We don't have a firm number for how many individual virus cells you need to get into your body before there's going to be an infection or an issue. But just know that the more often you're exposed to the virus, the bigger the dose is, the more often the dose is, the more likely you are to get an infection. These two photos here on the left, this is a black and white scan using a laser to identify someone sneezing. The face of the person is on the right-hand side. The respiratory droplets that they are expelling at high velocity is on the left-hand side of the screen. The heavier droplets, they fall to the ground faster, but some of those smaller droplets will actually hang up in the air for quite some time. There's a link to the video there. It's really a fantastic resource. Helps you understand the importance of the social distancing, that 6 feet. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on in the presentation. But those respiratory droplets will hang up in the air because of the size of them. And making sure that we are maintaining that 6 feet prevents exposure and increasing dosage. Now, some of the contaminated surfaces. The virus, when it lands as part of a respiratory droplet, or if I've touched my face and then touch a surface, I'm transferring the virus there. It is far easier to pick up the virus from a hard, non-porous surface. If you take a look at the Health Canada website for disinfectants, it's specifically talking about hard, non-porous surface disinfectants. That is where the virus transfers most easily. Things like in your office, in your facility, cups, spoons, pencils, there's a giant list beneath the surface there. I'm not going to read them all off to you. This is where the virus, it's easiest to touch and transfer. You can get transfers from porous surfaces. They are harder to clean. But any surface that is harder to clean where the virus is probably means that the virus is going to be much more difficult to actually come in contact with. This is not the kind of thing where it's moving around on its own. I've touched my face and touched a surface, or I sneeze and the respiratory droplets make it to that surface. The harder it is to get at, to clean, the harder it is to actually touch to make a transfer there. Of special importance in these shipping areas will be things like the pens and paper clipboards that we use to complete our paperwork, the bill of materials, the transfers, things like that. The doors that the delivery drivers use to get in and out of the building, the other options or opportunities for visitors to touch and then have your own people touch those surfaces after, are what we're looking for. So dock plate actuators, the on-off buttons, the up-down buttons, those types of things are what we are most concerned about, ensuring that we eliminate the need to touch those surfaces, both for the outside folks as well as our own people. Anytime you can eliminate a high-touch area rather than cleaning it, you're going to go a lot farther towards eliminating that problem. Any place where you cannot eliminate the need for both people to touch it, that's a place where you need to come up with disinfection procedures. And we've got a great resource on that on the CME coronavirus website, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the presentation. One of our members had called in and said, hey, I've got a shipment coming from Chicago, I've got another one coming from New York, and I've got another one coming from BC, all at a time when these four cities were in the midst of their upswing on the curve. Is it safe for us to receive these? Well, fortunately, the New England Journal of Medicine published a study which talks about the amount of time that the virus can live on these various surfaces. And what we see there is after 3 hours, the virus is still viable in respiratory droplets. So that's aerosol, but not airborne. Ambient temperatures and humidity absolutely affect the survivability of the virus, and as the virus is expelled in respiratory droplets, those droplets, they're water, they're going to start evaporating, and as they evaporate and they become smaller, they provide less protection for the infectious virus there. So on with the SARS-CoV-2 and the other coronaviruses with that lipid envelope, they're much more stable in dry air at low temperatures. So the higher the humidity and the warmer the air, the less stable the virus is over longer periods of time. So we may see that as we go through the summer months, that aerosol time, that 3 hours, may start to reduce. So it may be safer quicker. Surfaces that are copper, the virus has been shown to live for up to 4 hours on. Copper does have antimicrobial properties. This is not something that we can use as a cleaner. 4 hours is quite some time, and we actually don't have a lot of really good data about why or how copper actually interacts with the virus and kills it. But understanding that is there is a shortened life cycle on copper is part of what we're doing. Cardboard. Cardboard paper, these types of things, these same fibrous textiles, we can expect it to be around 24 hours for the life cycle. And again, the drier it is, the more humid it is, and the warmer the temperatures, the less the virus will be able to stay stable for. And then on plastic and stainless steel, we're seeing 3 days, 72 hours is the amount of time that the virus can stay viable for. Which means that in the case of folks who are receiving shipments from New York or BC that are going 3 hours or longer, 3 days or longer, that virus is not going to be stable. We are less concerned. Now, there are still opportunities as we handle the product in and out, getting it in to a trailer. If you're doing less than load, or we've got a drop, an intermodal concern, or intermodal shipping, where we're using it's coming off a shipping container or being picked up off a train, and we've got multiple carriers handling it. We are going to see issues. I'm seeing a lot of folks where the video is stalled. The team is working on it, and we'll get that straightened out right away. And I'm just going to keep pushing on anyway. Hopefully this works out. With the intermodal shipping, we are going to see more opportunities. So you're going to want to know how that product came to be in your facility before you decide what level of cleaning needs to get done. We've got some information, again, on the CME website, Disinfecting Hard Surfaces, which talks about how we should be cleaning, and essentially what we're looking for is to follow the manufacturer's instructions. We'll talk about that just a little bit here. We'll talk about it right now. So for disinfecting, before you're looking to clean a product, clean equipment that's coming to your shop, you need to understand that there's a difference between cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing. When you are cleaning, you're removing infectious agents, dirt, grease. You're getting schmutz off of the surface that you're cleaning. You can't disinfect a surface that is dirty. If there is grease, dirt, oil, things like that on the surface, that soiling, that dirty that you're trying to clean first, is actually going to protect the virus. So the first thing we do is we clean the surface that we're about to disinfect. And you're going to want to make sure that you're not taking a dirty cleaning cloth and going from one surface to the next, to the next, to the next, because you are potentially going to be spreading around that pathogen from one surface to the next. If you're cleaning a lunch room table, or a large stretch-wrapped palletized stack, what you would want to do is take your cleaning cloth, fold it in half, and think about that cleaning cloth now having 4 quadrants, and use 1 quadrant on each side of the shipped product. Once you have cleaned, we're going to look to disinfect. Now, sanitizing is something that they talk about in the healthcare field, and sanitizing is wonderful. Sanitizing is when you eliminate all viable microorganisms. It's a much more intense process. The chemicals may be a little bit stronger because you need to also kill the bacterial spores that would be found. We don't need to do that in our facilities. That level of cleaning is not necessary. What we're looking to do is disinfect, which makes the pathogens inactive or kills them, except for the bacterial spores. So, clean first, disinfect second. This is something that you need to be talking with your cleaning crew about, whether that's a contracted crew or someone internally. You need to make sure that they understand, A, not to spread the virus around by using soiled cleaning cloths throughout the entire facility. They should be switching cleaning cloths, disinfecting them on a regular basis once they've finished using them for the day, and then disinfecting based on the manufacturer's instructions. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that's so important very shortly. What is that disinfectant doing to the virus? Well, the lipid sheath viruses, the coronavirus family is an adult virus type. They are protected by that coating. And each of the listed disinfectants that we see on the Health Canada list of hard surface disinfectants or the Environmental Protection Agency to the south, their same list, all of those products break down that lipid sheath and deactivate the virus, kills it. Some of the other viruses that we see commonly, the gastrointestinal virus, the GI tract virus type, the norovirus, they have a hard protein sheath. It's tougher to break down. It's not going to be rendered inactive with all of the same products or all of the same procedures. So we need to make sure that we're using the right product in the right way. All of the products listed on the Health Canada hard surface disinfectant list, as well as the EPA hard surface disinfectant list, have been proven to be effective against those lipid sheath viruses. Speaking of those lists, here we have the links, the Health Canada list, specifically the disinfectants for use against COVID-19. Both of these agencies, both Health Canada and EPA, they register all of the pesticides on this list, and they have taken the pesticide list and moved it to a disinfectants for use against SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. You can see on the list there. Really great, fantastic. We've seen claims of products being able to kill the SARS-CoV-2 virus that are not listed and do not contain the necessary components to actually be able to kill that virus. So we want to make sure that the cleaning products that we are using or that our cleaning companies are using are approved on this list, one of these two lists. A Health Canada product, a Health Canada listed product that is not listed on the EPA, maybe because it is a Canadian company that has not sent it out, and vice versa as well. We know that a lot of manufacturers are struggling to get their regular disinfectants, their regular cleaning products, whether it's Spray 9 or try to find bleach or Lysol wipes or Clorox, and it's difficult. So what we are suggesting is taking a look at this list, or if you're out shopping, whether it's personal or for the business, you look for the base components. As we know from going through SDSs, isopropanol is going to be listed as one of the ingredients in some of the cleaning products that you're using. Whether it's isopropanol or isopropyl alcohol, it's the same thing. It does the same job. What you're looking for here is 70%. So if you are using a cleaner or a disinfectant that is 70% isopropanol or isopropyl alcohol, you are using a cleaner that is probably going to be effective against COVID-19. 70%. More than that, and a concentration that is 80% isopropanol and 20% water is not going to be as effective at breaking down that lipid sheet. So what we're looking for with isopropanol is 70%. Some of the other products listed may have quaternary ammonium compounds in there, and there's a number of them. So what you're looking for is that onium suffix. One of the most common ones that we see in a lot of hand cleaners as well is benzalkonium chloride. This is going to be in hand cleaners. This is going to be in a lot of the disinfectants. Benzalkonium chloride is one of the quaternary ammonium compounds, and it is effective at killing the virus. We want to be careful that we are not using these quat-ammonium products on a regular basis for daily, multiple times daily cleaning, because they can be quite harsh. We don't want to hook up to a pressure washer and hose down our lunchroom with this after every break, because the fumes from that type of cleaning are going to be potentially causing other health risks. So we would use them as per the manufacturer's directions and as part of, but not exclusively, our cleaning and disinfection time. Bleach. Again, same type of instructions. We don't want to use exclusively bleach, and we don't want to use 5, 6, 8 gallons a day because that's potentially creating additional risks. Something you want to be aware of is oftentimes when they're writing it down as a component on an ingredient list or on an SDS, you'll see it written down as sodium hypochlorite. That's the same thing. Hydrogen peroxide is another chemical that, as a base ingredient, will kill SARS-CoV-2. You just want to make sure that it's a component and that you are following the manufacturer's instructions for use. There are others. If you take a look at the Health Canada list, you'll see that there are a number of quaternary ammonium compounds and combinations of these chemicals that have been approved for use. If you cannot get your regular product, have a look for similarly designed, similarly mixed compounds and consider using those instead. Now, those are the approved products that we're talking about. What about the approved process? Well, there's no such thing. There is no one process that's going to be effective for each product. You have to follow those manufacturer's instructions. Generally speaking, the consumer products that we're using, things like Lysol or Clorox wipes or any of those ready-made products, they are not going to be achieving that 99.9% of all bacteria killed if that surface is only wet for 10 or 15 seconds. If you look closely, and I was shocked myself the first time I was reading through it, if you look closely, it says that surface contact time must be 10 minutes. So if your surface is not wet with the disinfectant for 10 minutes straight, then it has not killed the virus that you are trying to kill. You need to ensure that you are following the manufacturer's instructions because they change from product to product. And even with the same base ingredients, you'll find that the instructions change from time to time and from product to product. So, understanding that as a default, that 10-minute contact time is a good rule of thumb. If the way you're using your product only leaves the surface wet with the disinfectant for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you would actually need to reapply that disinfectant before the time runs out, before it's dry, to ensure that the virus is actually being killed. Off-label use is not guaranteed effective. If you take a look at this list we've got here, right at the top, sodium hypochlorite is the active ingredient, and the product name is Bleach Right Disinfecting Spray with Bleach. That one will kill the human coronavirus, and this is a screenshot directly from the EPA list, which lists the contact time. We don't have that on the Health Canada website, and that's too bad, but we do have the EPA that we can cross-reference with. 1 minute contact time, and it kills the virus. That is fantastic. Well, okay, rather than spraying it, why don't we just put it in a fogger, or a, whether it's thermal fogger, where you've got a heating coil, or another method. Why don't we just do that? The problem is that using a thermal fogger to apply this liquid spray will actually kill and damage the effective ingredient. So it is possible that by attempting to use it in a way that is not approved or not designed for this product, what you're going to be doing is rendering it completely ineffective. So make sure that as part of your process, you're taking into account the requirements of each separate product in your lineup. And even the same product in different compound solutions and delivery methods may have different contact times. If you, again, take a look at that list that's up on your screen, the quaternary ammonium compounds Warrior and disinfectant DC-100, both effective against human coronavirus. One requires a contact time of 10 minutes. One requires a contact time of 2 minutes. That's a big difference. So, same product, same base ingredient, different products, different compounds. Maybe it's the strength, but regardless of which, we need to ensure that we are giving the disinfectant DC-100 a 2-minute contact time, and the Warrior disinfectant a 10-minute contact time for them to be effective. Without that, you're wasting time, you're wasting resources, and could be better spent somewhere else. So you want to make sure that you're following those manufacturer's instructions. This is not the government who is saying that we've been tested this and it shows a 2-minute contact time. This is the company that's required to provide these numbers. So it's the manufacturer that's going to have those details for you. Something to note as well, sorry, I'll go back that one slide. A lot of the quaternary ammoniums, the sodium hypochlorite, you can't just spray it on and walk away, or wipe it on and walk away. Any place where you've got food preparation happening, or lunch tables, things of that nature, that residue can be harming your employees. So you want to make sure that once you've applied the disinfectant, as per the manufacturer's instructions, you're going to go back with potable water and rinse. So wipe it down with a different cloth, clean water, and get rid of all that residue that's there. That's, of course, both at the office and at home. So those are the cleaning products. Whatever cleaning products are being advertised to you or brought to you for use, you want to make sure that you are familiar with the design of the Health Canada website, and that you're able to go in, plug information into the search bar, and find out, is this product that I'm considering using actually going to be effective for the product, or for killing the virus? We want to make sure that we're looking at those base products. We know what we're looking for there. 70% isopropanol or isopropyl alcohol. Same thing, different names. Both are completely legitimate naming conventions. Just need to be considering that they mean the same thing. And then vetting cleaning companies. So when you're talking with a company that's going to come in and provide these services for you, whether it's the regular janitorial services or something a little bit larger where we're going to go in and disinfect an entire manufacturing facility, our contractor should know all about their product and the Health Canada and EPA lists. If your cleaning company is coming in and say, well, yeah, we use a product and it's a great product, it's just not on the list, why not? This is a question that needs to get asked. Take a look at the base ingredients and make sure that it's compatible and it makes sense for use. Your contractor should know, and if it's not on the list, they should be able to tell you why the product they're recommending is not on those lists. They should understand the different contact time requirements and why those are important. And they should absolutely be able to discuss how they're going to apply it, whether it's a spray-on, wipe-on. I mentioned thermal foggers earlier. Living in Canada, and especially in Manitoba, where I'm from, mosquito fogging, where you get a thermal coil, some type of heating device, and run a liquid over it and it creates a fog, mosquito fogging. That's been a fact of life for us in Manitoba for a number of years. You can apply chemicals in that fashion. Most thermal fogging is not used for disinfectants. They'd be used for other types of pesticides. What we see with the disinfectants is often a ULVP or ULV fogger. That's ultra low volume fogger. And these products use high volume of air. They use a high volume of air, but a very low volume of the chemical. And that is at low pressures, which is used to create that fog. That is an effective way to spray disinfectants designed for that. Talk with your cleaning company, your prospective contractor, and make sure that they understand that not every product can be put into one of those devices, and those devices cannot be used interchangeably. A thermal fogger and a ULV fogger are not going to spray the same product. So that's something that if your cleaning company is unsure, they're struggling to come up with the answers to those questions, or they can't describe it to you completely, maybe we need to look at working with them to find the answers to these questions, or find a company that's prepared. So now we've talked about cleaning some surfaces, and going back one more point there. When you've got a shipment coming from an area that you maybe have concerns about, using an ultra-low volume fogger is absolutely an option. Follow the manufacturer's instructions, and you can disinfect an entire shipment fairly quickly. Using spray-on, wipe-on products is also an effective way to disinfect an area or disinfect a trailer full of product that's coming from an area where we're suspect or there's a concern with virus hitch and ride on the shipment. Absolutely, either of those methods are going to be an effective use of the product, and we're going to be able to get the job done. Once that product has arrived at your door with a delivery driver, that's when we're seeing the greatest risk of virus transmission in our facilities at the shipping dock. That driver may have visited, if it's a less than load shipment, they may have stopped at 3, 4, 5 different loading docks that day, and have they picked up something and then transferred it? What did they do yesterday, 2 days before, 4 days before? We just don't know. The greatest risk factor is that driver. So a couple of the things that we want to make sure we're doing. First and foremost, we want to communicate with the carriers very early on about what our expectations are going to be, so that when the driver shows up, they're not surprised, they're not feeling as though they're being picked on. We want to make that process as smooth as possible. So ensuring that the carrier and the drivers know that the procedures that you put in place are there for everyone's safety, including the driver, is going to be critical to make sure that this process runs smoothly for you. One of the things that we would recommend is the contactless door opening. To come into our CME office in Manitoba, there is an accessibility lever. You push the button, the door opens on its own. That's going to get used quite a bit, whether it's using an elbow or a knee or a hip to bump that door opener. That prevents us from touching the door handle, which would then need to be disinfected 100, 200 times a day. How many people are coming in and out of your shipping dock on a regular basis? The less people are touching that door, the better. So using the accessibility door openers is a great way to prevent that high-touch area from becoming something that's a disease vector. Once workers are inside, you want to make sure that hand sanitizer is available. We didn't touch the doorknob, but that truck driver has had the opportunity to take things from other facilities that may be carrying the virus. If the driver is coughing and sneezing while in the driver, there's potentially virus in the truck. So even though the truck driver has not touched the door handle coming into your facility, they absolutely may have virus there that they can then deposit in your shipping area. So you want to make sure that you have a hand sanitizer station located just inside the door. And you can use alcohol-based. And what's nice with the alcohol-based is oftentimes it's going to have a moisturizer component to it. You'll see 70% isopropanol with aloe. And this is a legitimate concern moving forward, and maybe not so much for the SARS virus, but a lot of healthcare workers get trained that every time you wash your hands, you should moisturize them as well. The reason for that is all of those cracks in your hands from washing, drying them out, is actually another opportunity for other pathogens to get into the body. So we want to make sure that if we have the opportunity to add moisturizing to our hand sanitizing spray. So isopropanol alcohol hand sanitizer is fantastic. Benzalkonium chloride hand sanitizer often has that component in as well. Make sure that there is one of those stations just inside the door so the driver can come in, get their hands cleaned up, and then continue on with their delivery. Absolutely recommend using floor markings. And there's not a ton of particular advice that we can give here other than take a look at your shipping dock, your receiving area, and try to do your best to make it look like your local grocery store that has the aisles marked. We use one-way traffic so that people aren't going back and creating more opportunities for transmitting either through respiratory droplets or through contact. You want to do everything you can to identify 2-meter spacing, thinking about when we go to the store, what does it look like when we've got stickers on the floor identifying where we stand while we're in line. That maintaining 2-meter spacing through signage and keeping in mind that some of our delivery drivers may have English as an additional language, maybe their second, third, or fourth language that they speak. So we want to make sure that the signage includes pictograms and that the pictograms are as clear as they can possibly be. Work with your carriers, and again, as you let them know, hey, here's our procedures, work with your carriers to come up or create options for contactless signatures. That's how many people have touched that pen or the little electronic screen that your driver is offering to sign for the loads. If that is not required, or if we can do things such as providing each of your employees with a barcode that the delivery driver would then scan. Something. There will be options. Work with your carriers and come up with options for contactless signatures, because the less we have people touching devices and sharing them back and forth, the less opportunity we have for transmission of virus. And then finally, we're going to have paperwork. The entire shipping industry cannot go contactless overnight, which means that somebody's going to sign off a piece of paper and hand it to your people. What do you do with it then? Well, we know that the virus lives for roughly 24 hours on cardboard, so maybe letting it sit. Can we have that manifest, can we have that shipping document signed off on and then put it into a quarantine box for a day, 2 days, 3 days? Does that paperwork need to be dealt with immediately? Or can we allow there to be a lead time? It may not be possible, but these are some of the options. I would absolutely encourage you to work with your carriers and speak with your shipping folks to understand what the requirements are as far as lead time and speed. I know working for CME, we have a big push on lean. Lean manufacturing wouldn't have things sitting in the queue for 3 days without being processed, but maybe we need to change that for this part of the procedure. Using that kind of thinking, finding options for what you can do in your facility.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nathan. I'll ask a couple of questions I have here, and maybe that'll get the group going on some other good questions. So, first question that I would ask you would be, how do we use our COVID-19 plans that we may create, and how do we use these for potential future pandemics?
Great question. One of the things that we're looking at now is, when is the second wave? What is the second wave? Why are the scientists saying that there's going to be a second wave? We know that in the fall, we're going to have colds, we're going to have the normal seasonal flu, and we're going to have coronavirus. So how do we deal with that moving forward? Well, one of the things that we want to make sure we're identifying in our plans is, how do we ensure that we're going to have the staffing levels necessary? If your people are all home sick, your business isn't running. So making sure that we've got a number of opportunities for cross training, a number of people or key positions that are identified for. These are the critical positions, the ones that we need to ensure that our business runs, and that you have an appropriate number of people trained to deliver the services that each of those positions provides. So cross-training is going to be key.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nate. For anyone not able to see the chat, the question was, how do we use our current COVID-19 plans for future pandemics? And then Nate actually did a good job of relating it back just to the seasonal flu as well, about how we could use these plans to help mitigate some of those times when we tend to lose some staff. Another question, Nate. How would we best connect with local manufacturers in our areas that may be producing COVID-19?
Okay, that is an excellent question as well. There are a number of government programs that are connecting manufacturers to products that need to get made, and then connecting manufacturers to the people who need to buy those products. And that is a different department from mine. What I would absolutely suggest is, if you are in need of COVID or SARS-CoV-2 related materials, reach out to your local CME office, and we will connect you with the organizations that are producing the products you need. I believe that each of the CME offices have someone available who is connected and helping make those connections.
Thank you, Nate. I have a question here from one of our participants. And the question is, when receiving shipments, should each cardboard box be disinfected when unpacked within 24 hours? Would it be also possible to use gloves? And does wearing gloves prohibit transmission as well?
Yes, wearing gloves can absolutely help. So we'll start with the beginning of the question. Each cardboard box be disinfected when unpacked within 24 hours. If there's less than 24 hours between the time the last potentially infected person touched it and the time you're unpacking it, yes, you should be treating that as potentially contaminated. Does it need to be disinfected, or can you just wear gloves? Yes, gloves will prevent transmission as long as you are not touching your face while wearing the gloves. One of the easiest ways to prevent people from touching their face is having a mask and having your regular safety glasses. The eyes are really great at receiving transmissions of pathogens as well as chemicals. They do a great job absorbing stuff. And so if your people are wearing safety glasses on a regular basis, You may just want to, have them wear a respirator as they unpack it, or face covering as they unpack it, wear the gloves, discard of the materials, and then take the protective equipment, the gloves, and the face covering, and either with face coverings, decontaminate and reuse, or appropriately.
Excellent. Thank you, Nate. I have another question here. Why is Health Canada not advising the general public about needing to have the disinfectant on the surface for a length of
That is a great question. That any answer I give you is going to be a guess. And if you're looking for a guess, then what I would give you is Health Canada points to look at the manufacturer's instructions, and then they allow the manufacturer and the end user, ourselves, to be responsible for that. I know that in the healthcare system, there is a lot of training regarding the amount of time, the contact time that's required. I know CME has contact with Health Canada and with governments on a regular basis.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry to those that could not hear the questions when I was speaking to them. Hopefully connected the information with the question provided there. That should be available in the recording, or we'll make it available there. So I think we've covered most of the questions. If anyone does have questions that have not been answered or haven't had a chance to ask, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will definitely provide you some information on those answers. So to wrap up, I'd like to thank you, Nathan, for that information. Thanks again to our session partners, Farm Credit Canada, World Trade Center, and People Corporation. Apologies for the technical difficulties that we seem to have been experiencing today. Hopefully we can iron those out for our next session this afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for joining, and just a reminder that you'll shortly receive an email with the PowerPoint, a certificate, the evaluation, which we would ask you to please complete, and a link to the recorded session. Our next session will be on managing financials and cash flow through to recovery. This is on Thursday, May 14th at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you'll learn from CME experts and partners on key financial and cash flow controls to manage your money in a crisis, and falls under our leadership module. Space is limited, so please sign up now. Thank you for joining us. Be safe, be healthy,